Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Beard and Hat Show. I'm Pat, I'm the Beard.
And I'm Josh, the Hat. Today we have our third guest. We have Mr. Eric Marsi with us. Eric, can you introduce yourself? Tell us where you work and what you're up to these days.
So my name is Eric Marsi. I work for a wonderful organization called T2M Works. We are a hosted Skype for Business server management company. We work with people's on-premises Skype for Business deployments. We work on Teams direct routing and also our hosted Skype for Business platform to bring communications to multiple organizations across the U.S.
So tell us, for those that listen to us or watch us, you work with at least 2 people that everybody else knows.
Mm-hmm.
Tell them who those are.
So one being Jonathan McKinney, and then the other one, the man, the myth, the legend, Richard Brennison.
Nice.
You can't go wrong with Richard.
That's right. They're both great guys. Of course, Josh and I work with Jonathan on the CommsB Next conference as well. Yeah. But so people that want to follow you or read some of your stuff, what's your Twitter handle? You got a blog?
Yep. So my Twitter handle is Eric Marsi, no spaces. And then my website is ucit.blog. I usually try to post there, once or twice a month with some cool things regarding Teams or Skype for Business Server, pretty much anything IT related that I find useful to somebody else that might be looking for some information.
And really nice job snagging a very short URL. That is a feat that is hard to come across. So very memorable. Good stuff. All right, and on the video, everybody will have your contact info on the bottom lower thirds there. So reach out to Eric and follow him. Definitely has a lot of awesome content coming out and good insight into the happenings of the Microsoft UC world these days. So speaking of which, our first topic is going to be one that is really on everyone's minds, regardless of the industry you're in. But our industry is very closely related to what's happening as a result of it. We're talking about the coronavirus, more formally known as COVID-19. And then we wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the impact that's having that we're seeing, as well as some of the really cool things that we see within our little community here that companies are doing to help other businesses make this transition to working from home a lot easier. Pat's got a cool list he's put together we're going to dig into there. I'll start out just by saying this last couple of weeks has been crazy busy with organizations that were maybe thinking about the cloud, thinking about putting together a remote-based solution, started the journey, even hadn't started it at all, and just suddenly, right now, we need this to happen. So it's been really busy on my end. Pat, I know you're busy vacationing, but I assume you've seen some of the busyness as well, and Eric, I'm sure too. Mm-hmm.
Yep, I've been kind of keeping an eye on things, email and Twitter and stuff while I've been on vacation and seeing what organizations are doing. And as you said, it's great for people that are starting to think about work from home solutions, whether they were casually thinking about it previously or whether they're kind of being forced into it now.
Right.
Of course, all 3 of us work in that space where we can kind of be anywhere and do our work, right? Mm-hmm. And so what we've seen is some of these vendors and suppliers kind of step up with solutions to kind of ease organizations into work from home scenarios that maybe they're being thrust into. And whether that was, service related or equipment related or whatever the case may be. So it's great to see all these companies come together. Of course, it's advantageous, right, for those companies to get that business. But at the same point, we're not, we're not causing these organizations to not be able to do work, right? So there's a little bit of a learning curve. Some of them are learning quite quickly about what's available and what can be done. And who knows, in a few months when this is kind of behind us, we'll see whether those solutions stay in place, whether that causes kind of a paradigm shift across organizations and how they do business from day to day during, business as usual, right? Yeah. A classic example really is my wife works for a law firm. Law firms typically all people in the office, right? And they basically shipped everybody home with their desktops and set up some solutions to do that. Not something you typically see in a law firm, right? So it'll be interesting to see how this comes to pass.
Yeah. It's going to be nobody knows. There's so many companies trying to grapple too with, is this a temporary solution? Is this going to change the way we work? How are we coming out on the other side of this? I assume you're seeing a little bit of that on your side as well, Eric.
Yeah, so a lot of our customers, where they used to be solely office-based, they're moving their employees home. Pretty much none of our customers, other than a select few, still have anybody still in an office. Pretty much a lot of people, what we're finding is a lot of ISPs are even blocking different types of traffic for Skype and Teams. So we've been seeing different things such as not being able to sign to Skype, not be able to sign to Teams, screen sharing issues. So it's kind of interesting to see how different things are out of the controlled corporate network, that people are typically using on a day-to-day basis, and actually using this in their homes. So a lot of it may be due to load, but it also might be due to different things from different carriers. So it's just really kind of different to see these perspectives that you normally wouldn't see on a day-to-day basis. It's a lot of unknowns.
And you never really know as well. And Microsoft, I think, has done a fantastic job. I really don't keep tabs on the other vendors too much, but I think they've done a fantastic job with the fire drill they were faced with, where suddenly the infrastructure that they run these services on in a very stable and regular regimented manner are suddenly being slammed and overrun with traffic. And they're having to scale up very fast and figure out how to cope with the sudden surge. I think they've done great with that. But I'm sure they're having to make some decisions as well on their back end about how to more intelligently route traffic to prioritize services and things of that nature.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, Josh. You and I were at the MVP Summit last week, which went from originally being a physical event to a virtual event. And one of the things that we saw Monday morning, bright and early, was I was at a session in which we got to see some of the usage graphs, for recent weeks, and how this virus was causing more and more people to work from home, or at least more and more people to use some solutions, based on Office 365. And we could see how that usage was kind of creeping up. And then, that Monday morning, it literally went vertical, right? And we went from, a certain number to, 3 times that number literally in one day. And as a result, Microsoft, which can scale pretty quickly, was working on dealing with that, and did a pretty good job. There was a little bit of brief hiccup on last week Monday morning, but they were able to, with a little bit of kind of give and take, kind of throttle a couple of things within, like Teams, in order to give everybody the ability to at least communicate and collaborate, from home, or from wherever they were. So, a little bit of give and take while they kind of struggle with, I wouldn't say really struggle, but while they adapt to, such a growing load, because let's face it, nobody knows what to expect. Nobody knows that, hey, the load is going to increase by 1,600% overnight. Nobody can predict that. They just know it's likely going to go up, right? So,
and they themselves are learning how to work from home in the midst of this, because a lot of them usually work in the Microsoft office. So
a lot of them have been working at home for several weeks, many weeks. So that's been interesting.
Yeah, kudos to their team. They're doing a fantastic job keeping up. No one could have seen how fast this was going to come on, and how big it was going to impact all industries. But there's a lot of good things out there right now in terms of offers. Like I said, I want Pat to go through a couple of those. Before we do that, I want to throw a curveball at Eric. And there are a number of, just an inundated amount of work from home tips from every single direction out there. You spend 2 seconds on LinkedIn or Twitter, and you've got the whole book on how to work from home right now. What would be your top? Let's just go with your top 2. Your top 2 most important things you would tell people about working from home to make yourself a success.
Don't think of it like it's prison. you can still so even though we're in like quarantine, even like the state of Ohio right now where I live is under the stay-at-home order. Don't treat it like it's a prison. You can't leave your house or anything. Still go outside. You're still able to go walk. Treat it just as you're at your work. You're doing what you do every day. Just kind of treat it as like a different way of doing that. It was actually a big change for me back in July when I left previous 4 years of working inside of an office to actually now work out of the house. I mean, it was a really big change for everybody and my family. And, just really don't treat it like it's something new. Just kind of treat it like it's something new, fun, exciting. Don't treat it like it's prison. Second thing, it's kind of a little bit of a difficult one. Kind of got me off guard on that one, but
I'll say a lot of people right now are trying to deal with, and they're like, I've already worked from home in some capacity, or I'm starting to, and I know this probably doesn't apply to you per se, but it's having kids at home that throws them into this disarray of they
all
don't
the
know how to
distractions.
function. Yeah.
Yep.
Thankfully, I don't got to worry about that one yet.
No, but you do have a cat there, right? So
I got the cat, so I mean, it is a kid in a way. He doesn't like it when I leave, so.
Yeah, it's the fact that you're just doing your work from a different location, right? So you don't have that social interaction with coworkers, on the other side of a cube wall or a different office or whatever. So you get somewhat isolated, and that's something that you kind of have to deal with, right? Some of us that have been doing it for a long time, we're kind of used to it, right? But you have to get up and walk around and get away from that desk, and it's easy to take the time that you would commute to and from work, or the time that you would be at lunch, and kind of still sit at your desk and end up spending way too much time at your desk. And you got to break that habit. You've got to approach it with the same thing of 9 to 5 or whatever the case may be. Get away from that desk and break up the the mundaneness of being there by yourself. Personally, for me, I'm a music person, right? So I play a lot of music throughout the day. Just to kind of make it a nicer experience, right? I've got a great window here that I see literally right down the middle of my street for my entire subdivision. So I see kind of all the goings on. That's all the kids and neighbors and everything, which is kind of nice. But yeah, don't treat it like a prison, because that'll it's easy to feel isolated once in a while.
Yeah,
start twisting your mind up. Yeah.
Yep. And one of the big things for me is I like going for drives. I'll put the windows down, blast the music, and it really just comes back to just kind of getting your mind off things, just still getting out of the house a little bit. Not that you're probably supposed to. Don't go anywhere, cough on stuff and try to get other people's sake. But if you're out for a drive or something of that matter, it really just makes kind of the day kind of come back, and you're not driving to work or anything anymore. You got a 1-minute commute to your desk.
So, even if you're just going out to lunch, like sometimes I've thought about, I'll go out to lunch just to get out of the house, not because there's no food in the house, but just because, hey, let's break up the day a little bit. Like you said, roll the windows down and go get something to eat and come back, even if it's a 10 or 20-minute trip. It gets you away from the desk. So
good tips. And like I said, there's a billion other that you can find out there online. So make sure you check those out. But in support of this as well, there are a number of organizations, like I mentioned a couple times now, that are doing some really cool things for businesses and individuals who are trying to adjust to this unforeseen change. And Pat, I think you put together a small list of a couple of them right there, right? Or had a couple in mind.
Yeah, so the first one was, and we talked about, Microsoft earlier, is that Microsoft is now allowing free Teams access for 6 months for organizations, right? So organizations that needed to spin up quickly can do it, not have to worry about, the whole financial aspect of it right now, and spin up these organizations on Teams. Now, Microsoft has had a free Teams offering for some time. There is a little bit of a feature comparison that goes on there between what's available in that offering and what's available in the kind of the full size Teams offering. This is full size Teams, right? So you have the ability of using Teams for 6 months, kind of kick the tires, see what it's working, at least get you over the hump of all this stress of getting through this whole health issue. And I think that's, kudos on them. It's a service, right? So it's a great way to bring in more customers, if you think about it from a business perspective, but it's also a good way to, allow other businesses to continue doing business as well, right? We want organizations to stay in business. We want the restaurants to stay in business. I was reading about, impact on restaurants and everything. And my organization has done some work with some of these exact same firms, right? So we want them to be able to continue working and making money and staying open and feeding us and all the great things that they do. So the ability that, hey, there's a solution there for people to work from home. It might not fill every gap or every little requirement that you have, right? But from a communications perspective, collaboration, you can get in there. You might have to do some shuffling around to get it up and kind of configure the way that you want. But it's there. And of course, there's no shortage, as the three of us all know, we work in this space, there's no shortage of organizations that will help you get deployed on Microsoft Teams or help you do some roadmap stuff or enable some features or at least do some consulting in how to use these to better fulfill your requirements, right? So kudos to Microsoft on that.
Yeah. That's a huge thing to help organizations get started, especially ones that weren't already thinking about this and are now scrambling trying to figure it out. And I think Logitech was another one that I saw out there that had a pretty awesome starter kit for working from home in terms of, I think, a headset, and I'm trying to recall the details of that offer. But
it was the Brio and the Zone wireless headset.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So Logitech's got a great solution. Of course, where I first saw some of the impact of COVID-19 was they started closing some of the schools, right? Well, that left the big question about, what's going to happen? How do we continue to teach these kids? What about the academic year? Big unknown as to when they'll be back in school. So Logitech stepped up, has a great offering for some free solutions for K through 12 educators, right? The teachers can communicate with those people, because let's face it, we don't want people getting onto Teams with their iPhone earbuds or laptop mic and speakers, because it's a less than stellar experience, right? So Logitech's got some Teams certified devices that they're making available for K to 12 educators. That's got to be a tremendous expense to Logitech. So kudos to them. Of course, the three of us all work with Logitech stuff all the time. So it's great to see organizations like that stepping up.
Yeah. That's. I mean, education and healthcare right now are all industries are feeling it in some kind of way, but those two industries, healthcare is not feeling it in a way of having to go home and to figure out work from home. They're feeling it in a whole other way. They still need to be supported in ways they never figured out that they'd ever need to be supported. But the education system is grappling with something that just took them all out of left field, I think. So huge kudos to Logitech on that offering. I know there's a number of them out there as well. You probably do a quick search on the internet and find a number of them that'll help you get up and running to work from home. So
the other one that I wanted to bring up real quick, Josh, was Red Sky. So this year, especially this year, there's a lot of federal regulation that's kicking in. There's a lot of state laws that are kicking in around E911, what you have to supply as an integrator for a customer to be able to use E911, whether it's MLTS notifications, whether it's reachable locations, whatever the case may be. That is an entire discussion in and of itself, right? So we spend a lot of time, my organization does, talking to customers that are going to implement voice solutions and what those E911 features and requirements are. So Red Sky has stepped up and is providing their service free for up to 60 days. Includes their cloud-based E911 Anywhere service, which is great for people that are on the move. Their My E911 service to support teleworkers, everything. So if we kind of think about all of this, we've got Teams coming as a free service. We've got Logitech with free endpoints. We've got Red Sky with free E911 service. I mean, we got you a good part of the way there. I mean, we throw in some phone numbers, calling plans or whatever or direct routing or whatever the case may be, and you're kind of on your way, right? So,
it's a very encouraging picture from the community to see businesses step up. Sure, there are business angles that they stand to benefit over time, by introducing a product, but stepping in, there is an expense that is involved with it. It is meeting a need that is hit really quick, really fast, for a lot of businesses, a lot of industries. So it really does. I mean, there's a whole complete set of solutions out there to let you get up and running without worrying about how to make it happen. Very good stuff to highlight. So Yeah, we had to touch coronavirus. Obviously, it's all over. It's everywhere. Everyone's talking about it in some way, some shape or form. We had to touch it and talk a bit about it. But we hope that all of you, everyone viewing, and then everyone else that's not viewing, you should be if you're not. But we hope you're all staying safe and healthy and abiding by the guidance and rules and all that that's out there. Hopefully, we'll be on the other side of this by the next Beard and Hat show, right, Pat? Don't be a bit optimistic, but we can hope.
If we can pick a date for scheduling, that'd be great.
Yeah. But all right. So I've got a question I want to throw your way, Eric. Yeah, and I'm gonna read it almost word from word from the notes that I put here because I like the wording and it makes me feel. Yeah, here we go. So being such a young whippersnapper in the industry, because you are probably one of the youngest people I know working in Microsoft UC by far. I'm curious, you've made a lot of big waves recently. You spoke at a couple of conferences. You've launched a local user group. You do a lot online in terms of the blog and your involvement in the community, which is a really big thing for a lot of people at any point in their career, but especially this early on with where you've been started. And so I'm curious, where you're coming from and with your perspective, you have a really solid background in Skype for Business and the server side. You've done a lot there. But you're also seeing the trend toward the cloud and Microsoft's focus on Microsoft Teams and cloud-based solutions. So I'm curious, as you think about the long career path in front of you, because there's a lot of it left there for you, what do you view as critical next steps, as skilling up opportunities, as things that you should be focusing on? There's obviously things within the UC space, within Teams and Skype for Business that you can keep focusing on, but it's kind of been, I think there's a lot of people trying to figure out what's next for them because it's not the typical every 3-year Microsoft on-prem server solution path. So I'm curious what your thoughts are and where you see your career moving over the next few years in this kind of new cloud-facing world.
Yep. So definitely the future going forward is cloud first. People with an on-premises type solution, the inevitable thing that we are going to see probably within the next 5 to 10 years for pretty much everything that we use today is that we are going to be using everything out of the cloud going forward. So whether you're using
Jonathan McKinney, this by the way, I don't know that I think he's very much an on-prem person. I'm curious. Anyway, so, your thought process.
Yeah, so there is still a place for on-premises. There is different regulations for different medical industries. Local hospital that I'm really good friends with, one of the IT infrastructure guys. There is a need to have Skype for Business server on-premises with them. I do see that still as a need for most organizations. Not really most organizations, but a lot of large organizations that require those custom integrations with Teams. But Teams right now is still, we just got our 3-year anniversary of Teams, and we're kind of moving forward with what Teams is actually able to provide us. So one of the things that is exciting is, Teams has that direct routing capability. So it's still allowing you, if you want, to have an SBC on premises or even in the cloud if you want to, but allows you to integrate different things such as different PA systems or different just standard SIP pieces of software or devices directly in with Teams. So it's not that Microsoft's just forgetting about your on-premises customers. It's an evolution of how we do things today. So instead of relying on massive amounts of infrastructure and kind of worrying about, am I updating all these Skype servers? Am I updating all these firewall rules? I have this 10,000 port range for Skype for Business. Instead of worrying about that, it's pretty much just taking that infrastructure, relieving you of that stress, and putting it into Microsoft's cloud. Now, some concerns do come up, occasionally people with internet connections, and some vendors such as Yealink have, the failover on their phones where you can just do a direct SIP registration to your SBC if you have it on premises. So there are failover type solutions available. Teams is ever growing. There's a lot more features always coming to Teams. I don't think there's a dull moment to where there isn't a new feature coming to Teams. You log into Teams today and, oh, hey, there's this new feature.
Keeping us on our toes.
Yes. Yeah. So, it's exciting to see a change in how we do things, how we've been doing things for years. And, I'm looking forward to what we have coming in the future. There's always room for innovation. There's always room for things to grow. And I'm just really looking forward to that.
So now, from a career perspective, I'm curious, do you feel like it's going to be pertinent for those of us that have kind of worked in this space solidly, like in kind of focused in this space for all this time, to start branching into other semi-related areas like Azure or other M365 services? Or do you think it's going to be easy to still stay laser focused on the UC set of products, for instance?
To me personally, I've never been one for staying with one thing. I'm not one for being tunnel vision. I like, oh, let's look at this. Let's look at Exchange. Let's look at Azure. Let's look at different features within Microsoft 365. And to me personally, being a well-rounded consultant with multiple services is what makes you stand out from other just standard people, where they're laser focused, they're tunnel vision. I am just this. Because you can have somebody that, I know everything about Teams, I know everything about Skype. But the issue that comes up with that is then, okay, what if you don't know the networking side? If you don't know, the Exchange side, you don't know the rest of the infrastructure. You're kind of, I don't know, I don't know the correct word to use, but you want to be well versed in multiple things. So to me personally, being where I'm at in my career, I'm always looking to expand on what I know. So I play around with different things, and a lot of people know me for the labs that I build.
Some pretty crazy labs going on, man. It's mad scientist lab stuff happening.
So, Mark Vail gave me the name Eric the Lab Marsi, and I kind of stay with that. But thinking of what you can do, because really playing around with different things is how a lot of different inventions and different ideas have come about, to where you start tinkering with things and putting two and two together. When I was in high school here, 5 years ago, it's kind of weird to even think about that, but
I was going to say, to my point about the young whippersnapper thing, exactly.
Yes. From the point where I was in high school 5 years ago, I was big on, it's going to be servers and servers and servers. And as those 5 years have progressed, you're seeing a lot more where, okay, you got to start learning the cloud. You need to start learning how Azure works. You need to start learning how Office 365 works and how all the services are tied together. And Teams in general is a great way of how multiple services are tied together. SharePoint, you've got your voice, formerly Skype for Business Online, but it's a brand new platform in the back end for Teams. You've got different products all being tied together in one application. But if you only know how a subset of those applications work, it's not as good as knowing how multiple applications work and so forth. So I encourage everybody who's starting out, play around with something. Log into Exchange, play around with Exchange, see what you can do. Get bored of that, go play around with something like Teams. There's always something new to find. There's always something new coming to the platform, and it's really great to see. And I really encourage anybody to just play around, tinker around.
Yeah.
Well, you brought up a good point in that, you can kind of move across some different platforms, because it used to be, old school that, you could dive. Yeah, back in my day, that you could dive headfirst into something like Exchange and stay completely siloed in Exchange and spend, your whole career, or a good chunk of your career, just working with Exchange. Well, we fast forward to nowadays, and that's really not the case, because now, if you move Exchange to, say, Exchange Online, there's all these other pieces that start to come into play now, right? So we've got all the security pieces, we've got all the pieces, we've got all these other things, and so we don't see those silos as much. We see those lines become grayed, and now we can start talking with Teams and Skype for Business and and all that, and with Teams, that's even double so. We've got SharePoint and all these other things. So
right,
even if you're fairly focused on one platform like Teams, you've got to kind of understand the other pieces of it, like how does this affect SharePoint, how does this affect OneDrive, etc. So I agree. It's as somebody who's got kind of a monster-sized lab down in the basement, with a bunch of Dell racks and servers and load balancers and everything, that it's hard to kind of get away from all that stuff. But it's less from let's throw the CD into the server drive and start building some Windows servers and Exchange servers, and more towards here's how the service works, and let's see how we can adapt that to meet the needs of organizations.
I will say,
go ahead.
Big one that I would like to say, though, is, for anybody really starting out, build a server. Yeah. And I know a lot of it's going away eventually, build a server. Like when I was starting out with Skype for Business back in 2016, I built my first standard edition front end pool. I saw that, I was like, wow, this is great. But there was a lot of things that I never touched before, such as certificates, really going crazy with DNS, SQL. That's a big one that I, really wasn't, ever touching before. And really when I started building my first enterprise edition pool, and you really had to build those SQLs on availability groups and all these other things, you started learning about how Microsoft's product ecosystem works together, and you learn more about the back end. Now, a lot of that doesn't exist within the cloud today. You still have Azure, you still have different SQL things inside of Azure, but it lets you learn some of the fundamentals that you can use on those newer products and those in the cloud. So I really encourage anybody, to just really go around, tinker, and have fun. Figure out something that you love and just pursue it.
I mean, getting your hands on something like that, starting there, it like you said, it establishes that fundamentals, the concepts, because those same concepts will transfer to infrastructure as a service in Azure or other platforms. And so understanding how it really works at the base level allows you to transfer that other directions and figure out what you're doing. But to your earlier point, there are still many very valid use cases and needs for on-prem right now. And it may be a much smaller pool than what it once was, but there are still a lot there. And I just like to egg Jonathan about that, because working on CommsB Next together, Pat and I and Adam are always talking about the team's angle, and Jonathan is our strong Skype for Business on-prem advocate always. So we love that about you, Jonathan.
I get made fun of it a lot too, because I run 2 Skype for Business pools here at my house just for myself. Eric,
I was gonna say, you mentioned like Azure and stuff, right? So right now, back years ago, it was all on-prem, right? And we see the future as being a lot of it in the cloud, right? And I think right now we're in this whole golden age of we've got to get from point A to point B, right? For organizations that already exist, new organizations or people that are just going to spin up net new functionality, that's easy. We spin it up in the cloud, right? But now we've got all these organizations that are looking at the cloud going, yeah, we should be over there. And we have to take the solution that's on-prem now and get it over there. So if you're a SQL guy, hey, that's great, SQL on-prem, but now part of, where there's a lot of demand is getting that solution into some cloud offering, whether it's a third-party cloud, whether it's Azure, wherever the case may be. And so knowing what that migration scenario looks like and what that end result is, and being able to talk about, here's how it is on-prem, here's how it is in Azure, here's the trade-offs of one or the other, let's work towards migrating it over there. So, and I think that's where a lot of people are really doing themselves a great deal of good in knowing that scenario and how to get from point A to B, and not just knowing point A or point B, right? So I think that's going to be important, because there's a lot of flexibility, there's a lot of offerings out there, and knowing all the minor stuff, the niche stuff, the certificates, whatever the case may be, and how to get there, I think is going to be key for anybody that's looking to work in this industry right now.
Yep.
And I would say I'll put my plug in. You got to know PowerShell too.
Yes. That is one thing that I've tried pursuing at my school. They're big on you got to play around with these basic commands. I'm like, guys, where's PowerShell? Where's the PowerShell? For anything that I do know PowerShell today, I'm not an expert like Pat. Pat is a godfather of PowerShell, but great scripts, by the way. I'm going to give you all the but
he invented the PowerShell gang sign. I mean, come on.
That's right.
But yeah, so really I see a lot of these basic fundamentals being used and being expanded on with how we are transforming the way that we work today in the cloud. Things are moving away from where you have a VM or even the cloud, or you have these virtual machines. They're becoming more and more like microservices within another service. So that is a big change for how we do things today. But it is forward looking, and a lot of those concepts still come with us to the cloud today. If you're learning something, my biggest advice: don't ever think it's worthless. Even just this past week, I had one of my customers. They still have Link Phone Edition devices. Should not be using those. Well, the organization updated their root CA from a SHA-1 cert to a SHA-256 cert. And they were complaining about the phone just doing this login loop, obtaining a certificate, and so forth. And I'm like, hey, back in 2017, I was playing around with my CX700, and I had the exact same issue. I had to update the firmware on the device so it understood that SHA-2 cert. Without doing that before and having that kind of fundamental, I don't know, lesson, if you want to say, I wouldn't have been able to figure that one out.
Yeah.
So anything that you do today, anything that you're learning today will always carry with you wherever you go and whatever product you go to.
Yeah, it's important to have a lab, I think, whether that's a virtual lab, whether it's, a box under your desk, whether it's, racks in your basement. It's important for you to be able to go out and kick the tires and push buttons and blow stuff up and say, oh, okay, I probably shouldn't have done that. Let's restore or let's rebuild or whatever the case may be, because that's how you learn stuff, right? And like you said, you go, hey, wait a minute, I saw that problem, and here's how I fix it. That goes back to my PowerShell comment. I write PowerShell scripts to fix problems that I encounter, right? I have terrible memory. I don't want to have to remember how to fix stuff every time. I just write a script that fills that gap, right? And it ends up being advantageous to me later on or to other people, whatever the case may be. But having that kind of sandbox environment, I think, is crucial to anybody in the space that we're in, right? That can build stuff and see how it works and what happens if I click here, or what happens if I do this or don't do this or whatever. I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not playing around with stuff on the side.
Nobody's going to hand the knowledge to you. That's one big thing. Nobody's going to hand that knowledge to you. I mean, yeah, we do our blogs and we show how to do something, but nobody's going to hand the basic fundamentals and the understanding of how that system works unless you play around with it. So yeah, that's
you gotta have to drive. And building on top of the PowerShell and the scripting, I think that's going to be at a higher level, really an important part of a lot of people's careers as they look to the future from a technical sense, from a non-management technical sense. I think so many projects, whether it's cloud-based or not, DevOps skills, understanding a fundamental level of coding, being able to know how to manage things on that level it's becoming less and less a norm to get away with just being the GUI guy. I only do GUI. That's all I do. I don't touch script. You're not able to get away with that much anymore. And so it's going to be important.
There's a lot of stuff that you can't do in a GUI. So
and it's going to increase. I mean, it's just much easier to scale out capabilities via code. So okay, let's move on to the next thing. So the other thing I wanted to throw out there, Eric, was like I mentioned kind of at the beginning of the show, you really started to make quite a splash within the community over the last little over a year now, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's like 11 months.
Yeah, you speaking at conferences. I'd like to say, Comes Be Next was a crucial spot for you just because that makes me feel proud. But spoke at Comes Be Next. You've launched local user group. A lot of stuff happening in the blogs and videos. Really good stuff. And there's a lot of other people out there who are trying to figure out how to get started within the community space, especially with how to get started in speaking. And I'm curious if you had any tips or pointers about someone who is trying to really figure out how to break into that and is just not sure what first step to take, or just feels like, I can't do that. I'm not going to try. Any of those kind of things. Do you have any guidance or words of wisdom you drop on those people?
Big tip: just do it.
Yeah, I like it.
So one of the things that was kind of worrying me is sometimes when I speak in front of some people, I get a little bit nervous. Don't worry, everybody gets nervous when they speak in front of people. It happens. Yeah. And so back last year around in February, really I knew one of my local friends, Dustin Miller, and I knew Josh via Twitter. I think I first reached out to you in like October 2018, Josh. That's the first time I ever really talked to you. And really it was around November that I got word of Comms V Next. It was coming up on the second year of the conference. I'm like, hey, this might be a really good way to, reach out to the community and meet some people. Well, around February, I saw a post where they were doing a call for speakers. And this kind of got me thinking. I'm like, that could be something that might turn into a great career for me. I love work. UC was my hobby at the time because I was just working IT for another organization. But I'm like, there's a chance that this might be able to turn into a way to really get, out there and, potentially get into the career field that I've been wanting to do for, the past 3 years of my life. And, I started thinking, I'm like, if I speak there, that could be even better to stand out to people, but also it's a great way to share what I've taught myself over the past 3 years to other people.
Yeah.
So around February, I kind of toyed with the idea on Twitter, and I, was like, should I submit or should I not submit? And out of the middle of nowhere, this random guy, Jonathan McKinney, comes out of the middle and it's just like, yeah, submit. So,
Right.
it took a few days, and, I came up with 3 different ideas, and it was about a month later, I got an email while I was driving to school from Pat that said, you're being selected to be a speaker at Consby Next 2020. I about wrecked the car because I was just overwhelmed with excitement. Over
awesome.
the next few months, I was just thinking of all the possibilities of, things to add to my presentation, stuff I've never thought of doing before. And I was, building this presentation that took, 2 months to build, but as at the same time, I'm having fun. I'm not just sitting there doing all this work day in and day out. And that's when I had the idea. I'm like, let's take what I've learned over the years. Let's put this into a blog. And then that's when I launched my blog. And kind of from there, when Comsby Next came around, I'm going to tell you guys, Josh and Pat, you guys probably remember it. The day of speaking, I was freaking out.
I do remember it. Yes,
Yeah.
I was legitimate. I mean, I did do a public speaking session a couple weeks before Comsby Next 2019 at the local user group. Big thanks to Dustin Miller. But it was at the same level as an international conference in front of a ton of people that are there to see your session, which, that it really gets your nerves going. It really gets you, thinking, do I really want to do this? And I can't remember who it was specifically. I think it was either John or Jens that mentioned, get up there and have fun. Don't worry about it. Get up there and have fun. And, got up there on stage, I looked out at everybody and, your stomach just sinks. But as soon as you start talking about a topic that you love, you forget about it. You absolutely forget about it. And, it has been by far, I will still consider this today one of the best experiences and the best choices of my life. Not only did it land me an amazing career at T2M, but it also, got me out of that kind of that rabbit hole in a way where it just started sparking all these new ideas. I got done with Comsby Next, and I was already thinking, where can I speak at next? What can I do for the community? I started creating a video series. I pretty much took the presentation from Comsby Next, put it into video form. I started a video series on that. I started much more blog posts and, started applying for different conferences that I saw through the wonderful magic of Twitter. And, just started branching out to doing what I love. And, what I love is the community. And if I can help somebody out that was in a position where I was back, 3-4 years ago, seeing a new idea and wanting to know how it works and how to configure it, that is what I want to do for other people so that they can, do the exact same things that I'm doing today. And, it's a humbling experience.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, the one thing that was interesting, and for anybody that's ever been to a technical conference and kind of witnessed this is, you had a table full of equipment, right? And so, you got to be praying to the demo gods that everything's going to work right. And, as a new person, excuse me, as you mentioned, you're nervous, but now you've got this table full of equipment. In your case, there's a bunch of phones. And, hoping everything works good there, and some of that you have no control over, right? Yeah, that took guts. From a logistics perspective, we stuck you in the biggest room in the facility that we had. So, great big room, table full of equipment, new guy. I mean, I was waiting to see how that went. And, as I was running around, as Josh was running around as just, staff for the event and kind of, herding all the cats and everything, that, we all kind of just stopped and watched, and you knocked it out of the park. So it was good. And yeah, you were nervous, but, some people like myself, I still get nervous every time I get up in front of a crowd. And, I've kind of been all over the place. So,
yeah. I mean, I'd say I unfortunately didn't get to stop in and look, because I had way too many cats that I was herding at that moment. But everyone that I heard from that was there, and I heard it was a good following of people that showed up, that it was a great session. So I thought that was amazing to hear. That's great. And I still, to this day, I won't touch demos in a presentation. I won't do it. Too scared of it. Not gonna go there.
I'm always looking for something else to demo, and in that case, there was a lot that could have gone wrong. And moving, decommissioning a link server, there's a lot that could go wrong in that presentation. And one thing did go wrong with the CMS database. You can't have everything that you want in a presentation. But it really just even goes back to show how much I've changed just since that conference, and the doors that have been unopened for me since speaking there. Before, I had to bring a mobile lab, 4 laptops running, 10 servers in total, just to, have a live in-person demo. Whereas nowadays, I've been fortunate enough to be able to have like business internet and different things where I can have those services running externally from my house. And it just goes to show how, just one simple, I don't know if you want to say like session, or one simple way of being out there in the community can open so many doors for you. And the thing is, the community is welcoming. It's not where, I was worried originally at first, when I flew into Denver, this was all at my own expense. I flew into Denver. I was worried that, things weren't going to go well. I got to the hotel and, I got an invite. Hey, come down to the lobby. We're in the lobby. I came down to the lobby and there's Josh Blaylock, Mark Vale, Alexander Homeset, Stola Hansen, standing there in front of me. I'm like, I was starstruck. But as the day went on and Josh really, put this point forward to me, we're all just normal people. We are all normal people, and
well, normal is a relative word, I'd say, but we're all just people. So
yep.
Well, we're glad that it went well for you, and all that we ask as a result is that you name your children after us.
That's it. So we're gonna send you the form after this where you agree, and that's
no, but and you've talked about Comms Phoenix, and that wasn't so much our intent to do publicity for that conference, but it was good that you had that opportunity in the community. There's no shortage of opportunities to present your ideas, your information, your accomplishments, everything, whether it's speaking at a conference, whether it's speaking at a user group meeting, or blogs, or podcasts, or whatever the case may be. There's all kinds of different ways to contribute. And getting back to one of the earlier questions, that's a huge difference between the way things are now and the way things were back then. Like when I got started, there was really no community per se. There was an occasional Exchange user group meeting at Microsoft here in Michigan, but that was it. People weren't doing blogs back then. People certainly weren't doing podcasts back then. Twitter was really non-existent, So nowadays you've got this whole community of things to kind of draw from as well as contribute to, right? And I think it's kind of a push and pull thing, in that as you're doing stuff and kind of delivering all this content out in these various methods, that other people are able to utilize that information, and it helps them, and it just becomes this perpetual thing with everybody else. So as you're doing stuff, you're helping the next group of people, just like the old school people like Josh and I helped you. So it's good. I think community, it goes a long ways to helping people do their jobs now. So
yep, I love the points that you put out there, though, and I think they're key for the question of how do you encourage, or what would you relay to other people? And that is that, first, find something you're passionate about. Find the area that really is a passion for you. And focus in on that and how you can make an impact there. But that other point, just doing it, just do it. You see an opportunity, You have a little idea out of left field that I don't know about doing it. Just do it. Just try it. See where it goes. You can come up with a million excuses why someone else is already doing that, or this person. I don't know. Other people have been. There's a million excuses you can make. And you just don't. Just do it. Give your own perspective. Share your own experiences. Make sure that passion is front and center. And even when you do it, it might end up being a uncomfortable experience the first time or so. But you will fine tune it. You will find your path with it, and the passion will guide you. And I will say, like Pat said, there are many people that get up on stage and make it look like it's nothing. I guarantee you, almost all of them still get nervous every time they get on stage.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's how you deal with that, right? You know, if your demo would have crashed and burned horribly in front of you, what do you do about that? Well, if you're prepared for that, right, and you can talk about, imagine this is what happens, blah, 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 instead of just sitting there and staring at it and, sweat pouring down you and you're trying to fix it and you spend all that time trying to fix it and you're not really conveying any information. It's a learning experience and everybody gets better as they go along, right?
If possible, bring a spare.
There you go. Yeah.
If you're doing a demo, if possible, bring a spare.
Yeah.
Or if that just doesn't work, crack a joke and move on. That's all you really can do.
Blame the demo gods.
That's right. That's right.
So, Pat, did you have any other things you wanted to crack into with Eric? I feel like that kind of went over the top with the whippersnapper thing. I don't want to go too much.
Well, he is the whippersnapper. I mean, I'm almost twice his age, but
Really?
no, I mean it's good. It's good to see people getting into the industry and having the same kind of excitement that others have had and contributing to that. It's, to me, community contributions are big. And Josh, you're the same way. We're both MVPs. That comes from community contributions, right?
Exactly.
And it's not just, we like to do that. It's, we realize that there are scenarios and problems and ideas out there that other people have and that we've had them as well. And here's how we solve those issues. And why should we make that tribal knowledge? Why shouldn't we get it out there and let other people kind of benefit from it as well? Like I said before, my PowerShell scripts are all because I ran into a problem and I found a way of solving it. And I thought, let's make this easier so that we can solve it every time, or so that we never even have the problem to begin with. So we can move on and spend our time on other things. I work on billable time. So let me spend my time on things that are more challenging and less repetitive, right?
Yeah.
And helping the community out in figuring that out really helps that. And people have taken ideas that I've had and built on them, and as well as provided feedback that's allowed me to kind of adapt and think, I didn't really think about that aspect of it, and let's build this into it and go from there. And and it really helps because people are able to do things that they didn't think about, or that they were stuck on some stumbling block or whatever. So I can't say enough to how much the community has helped me, and I'm glad to see that people are working to give back to the community as well.
It's always great to see, like, you come across an error or something and you can't figure out what's going on. You just do a quick little Bing search on that, or Google search, whatever you use, and you find that solution that you've been looking for, you've been ripping your hair out for. And that would not be possible without the community. That would not be possible.
Right. Because before all we had was like the TechNet documentation, right?
Yep.
And that wasn't very comprehensive, to put it pleasantly. It's nice to see something in human readable form that helps you relate to, yes, this is exactly the problem I'm having, and oh great, somebody figured out how to fix it, or at least I'm not the only one that has this problem. So
just wait till, Eric, this will start making you feel older. Just wait till the first time you go out there searching for a solution to a problem and you find your own blog that helps you fix it. That'll be the day.
I will tell you one thing. Having the blog is actually more or less like having a personal wiki.
That's exactly.
I can't tell you how many times I go back. Hey, what's the command? What's the command? What did I do here? What's this? It is like having your own personal wiki. But in the end, I've gotten messages from like one of my former coworkers from a job I was at a couple years ago, where he's like, "Hey, I was looking for how to change your team's room system background. I came across your blog. How awesome!" And I'm just like, that's awesome to hear. So,
is.
somebody
That's
else
great.
looking for something and they come across something that you put together. And, that's inspiring to not just me, but, I hope that's inspiring to everybody.
Yeah. Hearing that, getting the feedback is huge. And, people that let you know, hey, I found it and I found what you did and I really appreciate it. Thanks. It helped me in this. It's great to hear that it helped someone, but it also gives you that little bit extra fuel on those days where you're like, I don't know if I feel like doing this today or writing a blog or something, pouring it in. Hearing that will just reinvigorate you to, yes, this is for a really good reason. I'm going to keep up with it. But
yeah.
A couple of years ago, I kept getting people that were commenting on one of my scripts on my blog, and they said, why don't you have a donate button for your scripts? And I'm like, because I'm not in this to make money, right? They're like, but you're helping us, your script takes an 8-hour task and lets me do multiple at the same time in, half an hour. I'm like, okay. They're like, but we feel like we should, give you something for it. So, I went out, created a little PayPal link. I put it on all my blog posts now for scripts. And I'm just amazed because I got one the other day that, said, hey, here's $5. It's not much, but your script saved me a lot of time or helped me figure out how to do something or whatever. Thanks a lot. So people are appreciative of the efforts that you do. You're not going to get rich on it, but maybe it pays the web hosting bill, right? So
not cheap.
Not cheap. And I've spoken to Ken Lasko, who does the Skype Optimizer, and he did the same thing, right? And people will throw a few bucks his way. It's just kind of a way of saying thank you and really, making you feel like your efforts were really appreciated and really helping other people too. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fact that most people who do this, it's not something that's your business or your employer pays you to do. It's your time, your resources, and you got to host it somewhere and all that. So it's great when people step in and they didn't just find it and say thanks, bye. They realize, cool. I mean, this was an effort, and I appreciate it, and it's good to see. So.
Yep. It's kind of a lot like what Michael and Michael Montague and Richard Brennison did with the Skype Validator back when that was still a thing. They still had that little donate button because it costs money to host all those little microservices that ran that. Now with me personally, I'm never in this for the money. I mean, it's nice, and not everybody out there has to do that. But with what I'm doing for the community, I'm there to just help others expand on what they do know. And, none of us are here to make money off of it. That's one of the biggest things that, we're out there, for. I gladly accept donations.
Right.
It goes into the lab easily, but.
Right.
But, we do this.
It's a community effort. It's not it's not like a paid product or anything. So they're little tokens of appreciation. It's awesome. But oh, good stuff. Eric, you've been an awesome guest to have for a third episode, and we appreciate you being on, cracking the coronavirus topic with us, and giving us some of your very young insights into the industry we are working in. Any final words of wisdom, Pat, before we shut this one down?
Just keep doing what you're doing, and you'll make it to where you want to go one day. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Don't ever get discouraged. Good stuff. Other Pat, do you have anything too?
No, I just thanks Eric for being on. It's great to see the young take on things. As kind of an old get off my lawn guy. So it's great to see the new breed coming up and the new FNGs.
Yeah.
I'm not looking forward to having to buy you guys dinner at MVP Summit.
Maggiano's is there you go. It's a small bill. It'll be all right. That's a small bill. Yeah. Small. Well, great. Well, we appreciate having you on, Eric, and as always, we're looking forward to speaking with everybody in the future. And thanks for stopping by. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Beard and Hat Show.
Yes. Thanks, everybody.
Wash your hands. See you next time.
Wash your hands and stay at home.
You can stay at home at least for the next few days. All right. See you next time.